If you do not understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you do understand will confuse you. In all of these 9 areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Anywhere on the planet, minute by minute, day by day, all of the time, all of the time, all of the time.
I'm Mr. Bobby, and with me during this time will be, we're going to call him Gate, and he's in the background. I'll let him speak in just a few minutes. But this is basically right now just a trial, and yes, there are going to be some errors made. We are feeling our way in so that we can really shape and format the show. Right now, there will be no live questions answered by phone, but you can access the show by going to YouTube at Produce Justice. You can get us there, or you can go to Facebook at Produce Justice, Neely Fuller Jr. That should get you in. And I think it's set up where if you have a comment, there's a section, and that's going to require you to write precise and slow so that you do get the comments. Mr. Gate will read it and we'll go on. So you won't be able to call in like in the old format. But like I said, this is a trial and error. And yes, there are going to be mistakes made. So expect that. But we're going to shape this show as best as we can. And we do want your input. As you know, I'm Mr. Bobby, co-hosted with Mr. Neely Fuller for years, but Mr. Fuller is not here. But I understand that there will be some excerpts from past shows that Mr. Fuller has done, so you will hear his voice. But with me today is Gate, as we affectionately call him, and he will introduce himself right now. Gate, good morning, and how are you? And introduce yourself to the public that is now going to listen.
Hey, Mr. Bobby, I know I've been reading the code book really for the last few years. And one of the things that Mr. Fuller said in the code, this is code. When somebody asks you, how you doing? Mr. Fuller said, one of the things verbatim was, I'm still learning. So I'm not here to replace Mr. Fuller, but I am still learning, and I'm trying to be on code because I've been studying Mr. Fuller. As many may not know, I produced the former Counter-Racist Code show with Mr. Bobby and Mr. Fuller for the last 5 years. I've been learning at the feet of Mr. Fuller. I've been studying, and I've been to college. It's like I've been to Neely Fuller College for the past 5 years. Now, I'm no stranger to radio. I do radio. I have a show on Radio One. I have I'm also a business developer. I have a undergraduate degree in political science. I have a master's degree in business. I've been out here for a minute, even though I'm behind the scenes when it comes to this to the Produce Justice platform. But I'm no stranger to radio. I'm no stranger to justice. So I'm just here. I'm glad to be on this show. And as Mr. Bobby had just so eloquently stated, we are learning. This is a pilot program. Since Mr. Fuller passed away back on February 1st, we've had an outpouring of people who have been sending their love. They've been asking, what can we do? How can we keep Mr. Fuller's legacy alive? I mean, it's been just overwhelming. And it really it's taking Mr. Bobby, it's taking us this time really to just catch our breath when you say.
Oh, yeah, it has. I've been getting calls and trying to inform people about, what's going on. And some people didn't understand how the process worked, the grieving process, how to get the family together. And a lot of people were wondering, was the show going to continue? But I think with you working with the family, have finally got together for the what we have here, which is a relaunch of the program. It's not going to be like it was with Fuller and I. It's going to be completely different. But like I said before, we will add in, or you will add in, some points that Mr. Fuller has made and take questions in the chat, and maybe down the line as we progress on, depending upon how the show is shaped. There might be a time when questions are asked. I understand there might be some times when we will have a special guest. Can you speak to that, Gate?
Absolutely. And I will say, Mr. Bobby, people are commenting as we speak. I'm putting some of their screens, comments on the screen. I see Mr. Muko. You may be familiar with him. He sends out his greetings.
Okay, Muko.
We see some familiar names. I see Jason. I see People Activity. I see Balance. I see. So feel free to put your comments into the feed. We will try to get you on the screen as much as possible. And throughout the show, as you have comments, and like I said, it can be overwhelming. If I overlook you, it's blame it to my brain, not my heart. But I'm going to try to keep the comments coming. And what was the question again, Mr. Bobby? You just put to me.
People wanted to know a little things about what happened with Mr. Fuller, little details, and then where are we going to go, and different things that we may introduce to the program. For instance, I might, depending upon our time, because we are limited, I might do a little segment about, well, today it could be Bessie Smith, but it's all going to depend on how the time or show is shaped. And also, I mentioned about there might be a time when we have a special guest. Can you speak to that?
Absolutely. But as I say, the show is evolving. Today, we just wanted to let people know that we are back. We are here. Mr. Fuller's legacy is alive. We can no way and ever even attempt to try to replace Mr. Fuller, but we just want to. So Mr. Fuller, he was very adamant about the fact it's not about a person, it's about the work. Mr. Fuller was about justice, and that is what we're going to push here. Make sure no one is mistreated, and make sure those who need help the most get the most help. And that's going to be the driving theme behind this show. We will have guests. We will, as a matter of fact, some of our most ardent listeners that we have been listening to and talking with for the past 5 years, we're going to bring them onto the show. People like Victor out of Canada, we hope to get him on. AP, Nicolette out of Maryland, Leona out of the Midwest, Cleo out of Milwaukee, Corey, and so forth. Those people, we want to bring you on because we really count you as part of the family, as part of the tribe. Yeah. And so we're going to bring them on sometime onto the screen. And so this is an evolving show. I'm just excited about the activity we're already seeing already. We're having a lot of people tuning in right now. I see some comments coming in. We had a comment from People Activity saying, Mr. Bobby, when you get a chance, can we touch on morbid curiosity? So put that
I just see that. Yeah, People Activity.
Put that in your think tank for later on. Somebody's saying, Bobby, y'all can use Zoom as a call line. Okay, Jason, it's a good comment. There is a way you can integrate Zoom and have them coming in as a call. Thank you, Jason. We may reach out for you on a little more information on that. So we're gonna, like I say, we're gonna be taking feedback. We're gonna be listening to you. In the words of Mr. Fuller, we're still learning. But anyway, we're just gonna move on with the show. Got a few things we do want to cover. But I tell you what, Mr. Fuller. See me saying Mr. Fuller, Mr. Bobby. If you see these bags under my eyes, this week I was watching. I go to Mr. Fuller's movie list. You know, he had this list of movies that we could talk about. So I'm on the website, and it just it was coincidental. I was looking at the list, and I look up at my TV screen, and Godfather is playing like in a loop over the week. I mean, Godfather, every time I turn on, it was another version of Godfather. The original Godfather.
The original one,
Godfather 2, Godfather 15. I mean, they probably still making Godfather movies now. Probably about 2,000 years old, but they still making movies. What else?
Khalif, my brother Khalif from the Yo, got to mention him.
Khalif,
Khalif, that's my boy up in the Yo. Got to get up there. The Breeze Creations LLC.
Yeah.
But hey, let's do this as Fuller would start off, and this is very important. It's just a model for our living, and he says this, and everybody knows this, but it's very important. It's one of the most prolific and profound statements that I've ever heard in my life, and it is just this: if you don't understand white supremacy, racism, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. And Robert, that is a most profound statement, because if we don't understand it and how it works in every area of people activity, the 9 areas that Mr. Fuller had stated, although some try to add health into it, but actually health is included in all the 9 areas. But if you don't understand what it is and how it works, then everything else will confuse you. You're looking for solutions to problems, but you go back to this right here. If you don't understand the system, it's a system, worldwide criminal system, conspiracy, things that they do to keep us. Your comment on that, Gate?
Well, I tell you what, Mr. Bobby, I was just looking through the current events. And every time I'm looking at these things that people are going through right now. I was looking at these government layoffs. People right now, there's assault right now. It's an all-out assault on Black people right now. And these government layoffs, because we know that a disproportionate number of Black people, non-white people, work in the federal government, and a lot of these programs that are being implemented right now. So what's happening, Mr. Bobby? People are scratching their heads. People are confused. They're confused. And haven't you heard this statement, Mr. Bobby? It's like, this doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand. Right. Every time I hear somebody say, I don't understand, or it doesn't make sense, or they're voting against their own interests, I go back to that quote that Mr. Fuller made. If you don't understand racism, white supremacy, and how it works, everything that you thought you understood will only confuse you.
Exactly.
That's why you are confused. You don't understand.
And I'm happy you mentioned that, Gate, because the current worldwide situation, that is the main tool that they use, confusion, which has many branches to it. Because if they can get you confused, you are easily dominated in those very areas of people activity. But one thing that I learned from Mr. Fuller almost from the beginning, and this is one of the things that frustrate people, well, what can we do? As Mr. Fuller has stated, even the Bible states this: you start with being truthful. Tell the truth. Now, it doesn't seem like that is a solution to it, but if you tell the truth individually, the United Independent, you start telling the truth about whatever the issue is. Just be truthful about it, even to yourself, to thine own self be true. You start telling the truth, that bad boy will spread. But the fact of the matter is that because people don't tell the truth, and because people don't believe that is a solution to this problem, to what? Dismantle it and do what? Replace this system. They don't believe it's going to work. But I have on good evidence, from the Holy Scriptures, that this treasure that we have is inside of us, but we don't believe that. Gate?
Well, I'll tell you what, we have to. One of the things we're trying to do on this show is ask, even though Mr. Fuller is not here to answer the question for us, he did leave documentation.
Yes.
He left the code book. So what we like to do on this show, and that's where we ask the audience to join us, what would the code say? Like we'll take, for example, we have these layoffs right now that are going on that are disproportionately affecting non-white people, people of color. What would the code say about that? So what I'm going to say, I'm going to throw this out here. And if you don't have the book, you can go to producejustice.com and get you a copy. We have 3 books. We have the United Compensatory Independent Code, the Revised Expanded Edition. We have the Word Guide, and we have the original book. But in the book, if you go to the code book, you can look on the economics. You can look on the labor. and study those areas of the book on how we deal with these layoffs and things that are similar. Also, right now we're dealing with things like tariffs. We're dealing with things like DEI. Yes, it's confusing as heck.
Yeah.
You say, wait a minute, what's going on? Folks, it's part of the plan. It's meant to confuse you. It's meant to spread injustice.
Exactly.
So I'm saying, do we have the answer every time? Is it going to be in black and white and verbatim? No, but you have to go back to the code and decipher it and say, how is this applicable to what's happening to me right now? And that's what I've been doing over the past few days. Now, I've been studying the code, like I say, almost since the inception. But even now, in these times that we're going through now, these are different times. We've been challenged. We're being challenged right now that we've never been challenged before.
Yes.
Stay on code. Stay on code.
Yes. And it should work what they are doing. Yes, it's going to work. But as Miles Davis said in that tune, so what? Okay, so what? This is what we are dealing with. This is what we are dealing with. Now, put these little antidotes with the different projects and whatever they come up with, but it doesn't work. Why? Because it's not truthful. It's not truthful. And because it's not truthful, it won't work. But you or we are truthful. We start telling the truth because we begin to understand the system, what it is and how it works, and we're not discouraged. And that is the power that is within us, or the power that is in you. It is imperative that you believe that. You believe that you actually have the power. But we're not united. Yeah, you are united, but you don't believe you are united, or we are united, because of the confusion that is in. I was watching MSNBC, and I was looking at different shots from all over the world. People from all over the world are protesting against governments, or so-called governments, for the abuse that what they are doing. People are rising up. People don't understand that at any time we have the power, but they want to fix it so that we're not. They don't want you to know that, because if they know that, then that means that they would be overrun. So they use intimidation tactics, military, or somebody even said the AIDS virus or so forth was put in as a tactic to keep us under suppression. You know, I don't have any documentation for that. I just heard that it could or could not be true. But so what? We still under the power that has in this vessel, this body that we have right now, with all the things going on. You fight against that, and your fight starts with you being truthful.
Mr. Bobby, I'm going to read one of the comments from one of our somebody who's tuning in this morning. Queen Akeha,
yeah,
Real Deal No BS Show. She says it's all about fear. The more we focus on a thing, the more it grows. Now that's pretty deep. That's pretty deep. Now I'm gonna interact with the sister for a minute. If she could if she could bear with us for a minute. So if we don't focus on it, if it's gonna go away, what is the alternative to focusing on it? I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying, if I understand fear. Fear is like fear of something it's like dealing with something you don't know. But if you focus on it, does it grow? Is it going to go away? So that's pretty deep. That's pretty deep. So I can tell this sister is really deep. She's deep in thought over there. She kind of put a freeze on the conversation for a minute. If we focus on a thing, the more it grows. If you focus on it, does that also take care of it? Does it remedy it? Does it mitigate it? Sister, relate to me. Come back to me. All right, let's keep moving here. But that's a very deep thought. Now I do know this over the years, from somebody who's been in radio and been in media most of my life. We have to talk about things. Even Mr. Fuller himself, he said you have to ask questions. The answer to many of the problems come from questions and answers. Yeah. So we're putting out questions. We're not dictating today. We're not being dogmatic. We're asking you, What do you think on these particular topics? We'll take your comments and we'll read them on the air, and we appreciate your feedback.
Yeah, hey, Gay, could you read that comment from People Activity? Yeah, that's the one right there. Said what? And I think people have a problem with telling the truth, and that's true. They do, because, and she said, because they get in their feelings, and that causes us to be untruthful, which we never get the chance of creating, and that's true. So you have to put your feelings aside and tell the truth. Yeah, we don't want to be embarrassed, and yes, the truth sometimes hurts, but the truth also heals. The truth also heals. And this is what we have to do. Yes, it's going to be discouraging. Yeah, because the system in place that they have been designed does not want you to know the truth. But what does the scripture say? If you know the truth will make or set you free. But they don't want you to do that. They want us to continually be in bondage, fight ourselves, and they introduce many things, drugs, prostitution, or anything to keep us in different kind of conspiracies that are true and not true. They mix lie with truth. And yes, it is very confusing. But if you stick with the truth, as you know what the truth is, it don't matter, because you stay focused on what you were doing. And this is what Fuller wanted us to stay focused on, to dismantle, racism, white supremacy, not just dismantle it, but replace it. With what? With justice. With justice, meaning what? Compensatory justice, meaning that everybody gets treated equally, and that those that need the most help, what? Get it. It's simple as that. Bring us up. But somebody don't want that. So guess what they do? You can't read. They don't want you to read books. They don't want you to read our history about our great leaders, about what we did or didn't do, the different riots, race riots, all throughout the history of particularly this concept over here in Northwest America, Northwestern continent. Yeah, they don't want you to know the truth. For example, Wilmington in 1898, you heard about Black Wall Street, but there were many Black Wall Streets. They don't want you to know that. So what do? They don't want to put it in books. They don't want to put it in books so that you can't learn it. Go ahead, Gate.
Let me read a comment. I think this is a reaction or response to the previous comment. This person said, we focus on white supremacy and racism, and it's still here. That is true. If we don't focus on it, we will remain confused.
Yes.
So I think that's why you have to tackle it. That's why you have to put some focus on it. You don't have to let it dominate your life. But what we're trying to do is eliminate confusion.
Exactly.
People are very confused right now. Let me tell you, I'm up here in the nation's capital. I'm up here in Washington, D.C. And let me tell you, boy, there's people walking around like they're like zombies now. Prince George's County, Northern Virginia, the Baltimore area, these places are heavily impacted right now by what's going on. And so what we're going to try to do also is keep you up to date, because of the guy that's in the White House, things are changing on a dime. 1 minute he does this, then he pulls it back, then he changes it again, then a judge puts a freeze on things. So people are confused. But when you get confused, one of the comments that Mr. Fuller said on page 87 in the code book in the revised edition, he said, be prepared. And this is not a doomsday prophet or doomsday saying. Be prepared to lose all of your material possessions. Yeah. Have the mentality that at some point you may lose all of your material possessions. So that's not saying to walk around like the Chicken Little that the sky is falling. That means don't go out here and load yourself up on all these gratuitous possessions that could be zapped from under you at any moment. Live a modest life. Save. Mr. Fuller was big on that. Don't go out here and get into debt. And so what we're going to see is we're going to have a realigning of our thought process so that we're not attaching our well-being, our worth into material things. Exactly. Mr. Fuller said it. Go to code book on page 87. He addressed this. Be prepared mentally to lose everything you own. But that doesn't mean you're going to lose it. That means live in a way that when that happens, you're not out here jumping off somebody's cliff.
Right. Because the system actually treats us like farmers to reproduce what they want us to reproduce, which is debt, to keep us in debt, for financial debt. If you see, here's the thing about credit. It's okay to have credit as long as you don't let the credit use you. You use the credit to do what you have to do. Pay that bad boy off after 30 days. How do you do that? Well, first of all, you start by understanding your situation, what you can do and what you cannot do. You create a balance in there, what's going to work for you, and then stick to it until you get it paid off, and then keep it paid off. That's how you do it. Don't play their game with these HELOCs and all that stuff. I'm not saying that they're necessarily bad, but you have to use them to your advantage and not allow them to use you. Why? Because as a farmer does, they rotate crops on you. They come up with different schemes to do what? To get you in that trap of debt, like indentured servitude, like my great-grandmother and great-grandfathers and stuff like that down there in the plantations of Georgia. They called it sharecropping. And guess what? The landowner owned the land and owned the what? Company store. And he knew that the sharecroppers were going to need materials. So guess what? They had to go to the company store to buy the materials, and they got it on what? Credit. And that kept them in. Gate?
You're talking to a son of a sharecropper. I know you.
Yeah.
Oh, I knew it sounded like I'm going to say son of something else, but I'm actually, my dad was actually a sharecropper. These hands, believe it or not, these hands actually pick cotton. It is so. There's a reason I'm not confused by a lot of things. Like I say, I'm not going to say I'm so into code that nothing ever confused me. But I've been out here a lot longer than a lot of people realize. I do stay behind the scenes in many cases, but I've been back there learning. I went to, like I said, I have a degree in political science, pre-law, a master's in business education. A lot of things I deal with on a day-to-day basis. But these hands, no matter how many degrees that I don't live on, I don't thrive on, but no matter how far I get away from it, I have to keep hearkening back to the fact that these hands pick cotton. My dad was a sharecropper. Yeah, I can tell you about the season. In the spring, you grow the cotton, and then in the summer you got to harvest. You got to take the hoe and chop cotton. In the winter you got to pick it, in the harvest in the fall you got to pick it and put it in that big burlap sack. So I can understand what you're saying. What we're going to do, Mr. Bobby, I'm going to read another comment from Community Education Network.
Yeah, that's Brother Ruscani. Yeah,
from what I gathered from Brother Neely Fuller. As if we live a constructive life, the system or racism, white supremacy would dissipate because it feeds upon us being constructive. So he's saying what Monica is saying: stay codified, be constructive. You can't eliminate this thing and make it go away. You have to. The answer, the antidote, is to be constructive. Don't engage in non-constructive activity because that is going to feed the beast.
Exactly. Which is continually want you to do, and keeping us from the knowledge that we already have, that knowledge that is already here. So if they can suppress it in all the 9 areas of people activity, they have it that way. Think about it. The 10% of the people control the 90%. That's what that system did. They decided that this is what they want to do. And Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, which I was studying early this week and last week, said the reason why they do that is because they are afraid of genetic annihilation. And she gave out many different reasons, truthful reasons, and scientific evidence that this would happen if this system of racism, white supremacy wasn't in place. That 10% that is in controlling of the 90% would do that. So they implemented systems and used confusion or whatever they can to keep it going, to orchestrate these things. These wars are real, they're bankers' wars, but they're made to look to use what you said earlier, Gate, fear. Fear can dominate people. If you are afraid, but you have no, but if you really know who you are, you don't have to be afraid because know. So what they do is attack your belief system by putting up false things that appear real. And what does fear mean? FEAR, false events appearing real.
All right, Mr. Bob, we got a couple of comments.
Okay.
Community Education Network says credit cards or sharecrop cards. Hey, I like the way you think there, Community Education Network. We got let's see here. Breeze Creation said if you watch the TV Colombo show, he solved all his problems and cases by asking questions. People Activity also said we must change our values. Thank you again, everybody. What we're going to do, we're going to change up just a little bit. What we're going to do, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to go into our theme, one of our theme topics today, and that in light of Women's History Month, we're going to ask the question, are women, particularly Black women, the most abused people on the planet? Now, Mr. Fuller had his take on that, and I think it's very poignant that we tackle this topic on this. We're right at the middle of Women's History Month, but Black women, I think, have a special role, and they have we're going to put a little focus on our sisters today, and that's we're going to do that right after the break. So hang on. This is the Counter Racist Code Show. I am Gate. Relaunch. I have Mr. Bobby here, and so don't go anywhere. We're going to come back in a moment. So hang on. We'll be right back in a moment. Let me get my.
If you do not understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you do understand will confuse you. In all of these 9 areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Anywhere on the planet, minute by minute, day by day, all of the time, all of the time, all of the time.
All right, we're back. Mr. Bobby, what we're going to do, let me just remind everybody that this show format is slightly different than the previous show where people are calling in, and we're still working on some logistical things. Maybe at some point we will be able to take phone calls, but right now we are taking your comments in the feed. You can catch the show by going to producejustice.com. The show is streaming right on the home page of the website. So if you don't have a social media platform and you just want to tune into the show, if you want to let somebody know about the show, because some people think you only have to be on Facebook or YouTube to watch the show. You can watch the show right on the homepage of producejustice.com. You can put your comments into the feed on YouTube and on Facebook, and we'll read some of your comments on the air. This show is evolving. We don't have all the answers today. We're never going to have all the answers, but we always are going to be learning, as Mr. Bobby say. And Mr. Fuller has constantly reminded us. So, Mr. Bobby, any comments before we go into the next segment where we're going to actually play a clip from Mr. Fuller as he addresses this issue of Black women being the most abused people on the planet?
Okay, and before you play that, where can we get the book? I know where, but just for those who are new to the program, where can we get the books and materials from the Counter Racist Culture? Where do we have to go to?
Boy, Mr. Bobby, we have some good news today. As we speak, there's a big truck pulling up in Washington, D.C. right now with a brand new shipment of books.
Good.
So we were bombarded from February 1st all the way up to now. And I want to first say thank you to everybody who's been so patient. We put a notice on the website that it's going to be about 4 to 6 weeks before your books came in. I thought that would just dry up the sales altogether. But people ordered anyway. They said, look, if it have to take 4 weeks, 6 weeks, I want the material. So I'm letting you know right now, if you go to the website, we're back down to our regular shipping schedule, about 7 to 10 days to get your book. We have 3 books Mr. Fuller wrote. He wrote his original book in 1984, which was the United Independent Compensatory Code book. He wrote the Word Book in 2010, which really is a good guide for if you hear certain phrases and terminologies. That book is good for that. And then, of course, he did the expanded version of the Code Book in 2016. And all three of the books are on the website. You can buy them individually. You can buy them collectively. We have a lot of resellers out here from bookstores and people like that who've been just clamoring to get the books. So the books are in. They're actually arriving today. So it was I don't think it was, it's how the universe lines up, but it is kind of coincidental. We've been waiting on these books since almost January, that they arrived on the day we launched the show. So that's a sign of things to come, how sometime the universe.
And we can get the books by going to producejustice.com. That's
producejustice.com. Producejustice.com.
Okay, now what was that clip you were going to play there, Gate?
All right, here we go. So hang on. This is Mr. Fuller's actual voice, and we'll have your comments afterwards.
I'm talking about the Women's Month, and black women in particular throughout the entire world, wherever they are. Lots of things are being said that need to be said, and so I guess I'll just join that group, because for one thing I keep hearing repeatedly is that black females all over the world are the most abused people on the planet. And that's either true or false, but I say I have reason to believe that it's true when I stop to think about it so far. It's saying black females are the most abused of all people on the planet. That's a flat statement. So the code, which is what I talk about, requires me to always go with the truth. So the question would be, is that true? And if it is true, and I have no reason to believe it's not true until somebody shows me, I'll say, well, that means that somebody should react to that, if that statement is true, in the most constructive manner. Because what everybody on the planet should be doing every minute of every day is doing only that which is most constructive. So therefore, what do you do about that? If black females are the most abused people on the planet, you stop doing it, logically speaking, because no one is supposed to be abusive. Just another word for mistreatment. No one, ever, under any circumstance, is supposed to be mistreated for any reason. And so if that's true, you look and see if it's true first. And if that is true, and I have no reason to believe that it's not true, it means, okay, abuse, mistreatment. How? If you're going to stop it? Well, for one thing, you can start by, in a codified manner, because once something comes to your attention, it should be codified, meaning you find out what's the best thing to do. That's what codification means. And stick with it till you find something better. And the best thing is not to do. So I came to the conclusion immediately, if that's true, then don't do anything or say anything that constitutes abuse or mistreatment of any kind against black females. The most mistreated people on the planet is a black female. Then don't do anything and don't say anything at any time.
against black females, and I ask myself, well, what if they're doing things that shouldn't be done? You point out that it shouldn't be done, the act shouldn't be done, but then you shouldn't speak against the person who is that way because the person is being abused. You can expect the most abused people on the planet to do things that most people wouldn't approve of. That's logical. But you also give the reasons. Say, yes, black females do this or do that or say this or say that, or I know of one who did this and did that, or I know of a lot of them who have done this or said that. But why? See, that's one of the questions that should always be asked under any circumstance involving anything or anybody. Why are they doing it? How did they get to the place of state of mind where they are doing it? In things that you may not approve of. You can say you don't approve of the things that are done, but you give, well, who did it? You say it's a black female. Say, well, you can expect that type of behavior from a person who is being constantly abused or has been so severely abused, logically speaking, that you can expect that type of behavior. So, I just want to reiterate what I said about it before, because it really is important.
Okay.
Black females, since this is last month was Black History Month, she's a part of that. This month, they'll say you have, for example, a black legislator. And they'll say that woman is just as silly as she can be. I don't know, blah, 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 blah. Stop doing that. Just agree or disagree with some things being done, but don't give verbal abuse to the woman by doing any name calling of any kind. Don't say she's silly. Point out the thing that's being done and say you don't agree with it. And then when you don't agree with somebody doing something, then that means you got a better suggestion. So the thing to do is to concentrate not so much on the person who did or said something, but on whether or not what was being done or said can be replaced with something better. And so you make a suggestion about what would you think would be better and say why. And that way you have what you call going in the direction of a civilized discussion rather than arguments and name calling. That's all I have to say about that right now.
Okay, right now. Okay.
Anybody who disagrees can say so and say why.
Oh, yeah, obviously. Okay. 516-453-9999.
Mr. Bobby?
Yes, sir.
That was deep. Let me give my take on it. Then
Okay.
I'm gonna open it up and let you comment, and we'll take some comments from the audience. Of course, I agree with what Mr. Fuller said, and I'm gonna focus in on a certain area on what he addressed.
Okay.
Is that some people say, well, of course, maybe black women are being abused, they are being, but look at what they're doing to themselves. Look at how they dress. Maybe they're being too masculine. Maybe they're over sexualized. Maybe they're doing this or that, the other. But, and Mr. Fuller, I'm glad he touched on this, because we do get that kickback sometimes from some of our own people, and of course people outside the community, is that let's look at the Black women themselves. Do they need to look in the mirror? We all need to look in the mirror, but go back to the code. We say the ones who need help the most get the most help. Black women are a victim. Nobody needs a get out of jail free card, but when you are a victim in this system, expect things to happen. Don't expect things to be normal. You can't look at people through the same prism when you're looking at somebody who's been victimized from the minute they came onto this continent.
Yes.
So we can't be our own biggest abuser or be the one that attacks each other when we are all victims.
Yes.
We are all victims, particularly Black women. So Black women, I say, yes, we understand. I understand that you are a victim. And these are the words from Mr. Fuller. He says, don't do it. Don't get into the name calling. You are actually feeding the beast of white supremacy when you do that.
Right. And it is designed that way to have us continually look down upon ourselves, because we have been trained to do that. We've been like in a cage where they train to do this. And if you do a good job, according to them, you are rewarded with more abuse to our own people. You see some of the people who are so-called, that we look up to, our leaders and so forth, or our so-called leaders, they've been trained to do that. I remember one time Mr. Fuller and I were discussing the March on Washington. But if you go with Malcolm X's speeches, I think it was a message to the grassroots and the ballots or bullets, you can understand how that whole thing was orchestrated. Now, a lot of people, this is just Mr. Bobby talking, I'll call it the farce on Washington. Yes, it was good things that came out of that, but it was orchestrated by powers that were not Black, and our leaders were chosen, or the leaders that they said were off $1.5 million. Malcolm addressed that situation in those two speeches, a message to the grassroots and the ballots or the bullet. But guess what? People don't want to take the time to invest in that, or going back to what you played, trying to decipher what is the truth or what somebody says. That requires you to do what? To research it. Yes. But you don't want to do that because you're too caught up in self-indulgences that produce nothing but material gain, which what? Produces nothing. Absolutely nothing. One other thing before I go back to you, Gay, Mr. Fuller talked about results, and I pointed it out on a show that Mr. Fuller and I did was about results with Dr. Randy Short. It's on YouTube. It's 59 minutes, and Fuller got down. He said, we're looking for results. If you can get it, get it. Neely Fuller and Dr. Randy Short discussing results, and Fuller let it go. We need results for what we're doing, not just talk, but results to dismantle, and not only dismantle, but replace the system of white supremacy with justice. Gate?
Well, I'm going to say this on this Women's History Month, is that I think our Black women are tired. I think they've been carrying a burden beyond, I think, that was expected of them. And I think we're all in this struggle together, but I, my personal self, I say I'm going to step it up a little bit. I want to help. I want to step it up and make sure that we have our sisters' backs. They've been out here in the struggle. They're on the front line. they dealing with this. And I'm gonna give you a take. And this is the way I'm kind of interpreting the code, maybe my own little twisted way of looking at it. But I look at this affront, this assault right now that's taking place by our government. Some of this assault is not directed, it is directly aiming at the Black woman. I think this because right now, many of these weak men in the government, they see the Black woman is one of their biggest threats right now. And when you start talking about cutting government jobs and some of these programs, they're going to disproportionately affect Black women because Black women right now is a big threat to the white power structure. That is why we, Black men, have to step it up. We really have to step it up and have these sisters' backs. Because if they go down, we all going down.
Yes.
That's my take on it.
Yes. And here, not just with words, action, meaning that we have to do something to help our sisters. And I mean, help them. Sisters have been at the forefront, been asked to be men, carrying the family and doing chores and working and putting their kids through school, mostly by themselves, because the brothers, not all, but most of the brothers have been out doing things that were destructive to family. And this was designed by those that are in charge to do it that way, that we disrespect one another and even disrespect our sisters. That's why, one of the reasons why I never want to call a sister the B word or the hoe and all that kind of, even though some of them may act like that, but they're not that. We've been trained to call them that and do that. Many sisters have stood up and just right take care. One of the sisters that I wanted to point out, when you get time, and probably only 1 out of 10 will do this, read about Bessie Smith. Bessie Coleman. I was going to read that today, the first Black woman pilot. I was going to read something about that today, but I'm going to have you research that. Read about Bessie Coleman and what she did and the different things that she had to overcome as Black female pilot. It's very interesting. Not only her, but almost all of our history about different men and women, but in particular, this is women, and she isn't the only woman, but have stood in the gap to do things for a Sojourner Truth, for example, and all that. There's just so many. But right now, you get time, a few minutes, research a little bit about Bessie Smith, that you find out about her. And then when you get that knowledge, don't keep it to yourself. Pass it on to somebody else that doesn't know. Gate?
Well, I'm going to say this as we come to the end of the show, is that whatever your inclination to point your finger at your fellow brother, your fellow sister, to call them names, to denigrate them, to say that they are less than, remember, they too are a victim of racism and white supremacy. You should always think of that when you're about to talk about somebody, when you're about to name call, when you're about to say this person shouldn't have done that. That doesn't excuse them. That's not a get out of jail free card. That's not a pass. That just means they are victims. They are victims. We're in this prison yard called white supremacy, and we have to deal with this, as Mr. Fuller states so eloquently in his book. So I want you to do this as we wrap up this first show. And I want to thank you, everyone, for the great interaction, the great engagement, the great feedback. That this is the first of many shows. We'll be taking your feedback and your advice, your comments, and we will make this show better. We will have some of you on as guests. So just know this show is coming. But my takeaway today, and of course, this is not only about the Black women or the sisters out here, but on this particular month. And I'm just giving them a little more grace today to help us all understand that whatever you may think, good or bad, the sisters are doing a darn pretty good job, considering that they are in this system of white supremacy, and I would give them extra marks because of the accomplishments that they've been able to implement in spite of the system that they're operating in. And I'm just saying, brothers, right on to you. You're hanging in there, but let's have these sisters back and let's uphold them and uplift them during this month, not just in this month of March, but beyond.
Agreed. And keep this in mind. Black history is not just a month. It used to be a week. It used to be a day. Black history has always been 24/7, 365. Remember that. Keep that in mind.
All right. Mr. Bobby, any closing thoughts?
Yes, sir.
Get out of here.
Well, I mean, for a first show, like I said, we're fine. We're feeling our way in, trying to find out what works or doesn't work. And that's okay, because as Mr. Fuller stated so profusely, we're still learning. He didn't just say that to sound good, but we're still learning. We're learning how to do this show better. We're learning how to accept the comments. And, you know, like I said, what works and what doesn't work, looking for improvements just to be better, because we are all still learning.
I'm going to say this. We are not here to replace Mr. Fuller. I'm definitely not. We are here to learn. We are open to comments. We're open to criticism. We're doing this to try to keep Mr. Fuller's legacy alive, his words, his works. Also, don't forget to go to the website and stay abreast of what's going on. You can get the books at producejustice.com. You can watch the show on producejustice.com. And I'm going to end with the words of one of our listeners, Kevin Evans. He says simply, Mr. Bobby, still learning. Folks, that's going to wrap it up today. This is the
Alrighty.
on the Racist Code.
All right. Well, we'll hopefully 9 o'clock.
There you go. Back next week.
If you do not understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you do understand will confuse you. In all of these 9 areas of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Anywhere on the planet, minute by minute, day by day, all of the time.